What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. This is going to be my full card breakdown and best bets video for UFC Vegas 53, headlined by Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. Today is Thursday, April 28th. The fights are only about 24 hours away, coming up on Saturday here. This is actually going to be kind of a different episode of the show than I normally do. It's going to be kind of a little bit of a quicker, quick fire kind of episode, or at least that's my plan, I'm hoping. I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I've been thinking a lot this week about just like what a weird hobby it is to decide to become an MMA gambling content creator. Like, obviously there are people who make money at this. There are people who, are able to build up their YouTube channel and their brand and the various things that they do to a point where, they're even able to do this for a living. And then there are people like me who just kind of take this on as a hobby. I don't make any money. I make a little bit of money gambling, but my unit size is so small that it really doesn't amount to anything anyway. So even the gambling side of it really is just a hobby for me in the end. But I was thinking about how weird it is that, most people, like, if you take on a hobby, like say you're into golfing or you're into gardening or whatever it might be, like, you can just decide to do that hobby when you want to and decide not to do that hobby when you don't want to, or when you don't have time or whatever it might be. The weird thing about taking on this MMA gambling content creation as a hobby is, like, there are expectations on you. There's a schedule on you. So, like, and I'm not complaining. Like, I enjoy doing this, but I'm in the middle of a big work project, and I've had a lot of trouble this week finding time to get my research done, finding time to do the tape study, finding time to type up my notes and go through my notes and make sure I know what I'm talking about. Because I've talked to you guys about how weird my memory is. I can't just watch fights and then tell you all the stuff that I noticed. I have to type up detailed notes. Then I have to retype those notes, and then I have to spend time reading the notes and, like, actually remembering what the heck I'm going to talk about. Otherwise, I'll just blank out and not even have anything to say. But anyway, my point is that I've had a really busy, I have a work project going on, and I've just had a really busy week, and I haven't even been able to find time to sit down and do this video. Actually, I'm in the middle of my workday right now, which is why I'm trying to do this quickly and do like a quick fire version of it, because I have to get back to work. But I guess what I'm saying here is that this is a thing that I really want you to do. I want you to pause the video right now, and I want you to go to either the Twitter page or the YouTube channel or whatever of your favorite MMA gambling content creator, or any kind of content creator, I guess. And I want you to, like, put in the comments or something, like if it's YouTube, put in their comments, just tell them that you appreciate what they do. Thank them for what they do, because it's a lot of work. I mean, it really almost becomes like another job. Like like I feel like I have, and again, I'm not complaining because I've put it on myself and I do it because I enjoy it, but I literally feel like I've put the responsibilities of a part-time job on myself that I don't get paid for. So anyway, and normally I enjoy it and I just do what I do and it's fine, but I'm just kind of feeling it this week because I'm like, oh man, I got to get this video out. And it's like, does the world come crashing to a halt if I don't get my full card breakdown video out? Of course not. But I know that there's a handful of people who do like to watch the video, and there's a few of you who if I don't get the video out in time, like, I get messages from people, and I appreciate that. I think it's awesome that there are people out there who are watching these videos and who are waiting for them to come out, like, and I don't want to let those people down, even if there are only like 2 or 3 of them. So anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, because I was talking to one of my buddies I made on Twitter just recently, who's also a content creator, just talking about, like, what a difficult thing this is to do and how it takes up a ton of time and whatever. And anyway, enough about that. I'm gonna skip the recap of how our betting went on the last event, UFC Vegas 52. We did lose a little bit. I think we only lost about a unit, so we're on a little bit of a losing streak. If you look at my graph on betmma.tips, it had been going like this for a long time. We've dropped off a little bit. We're still way up. We're up like 54 units or something total. And that's since I started tracking in October 2021. And I think we're only up like 12 units on the year now or something like that. But hey, like, we're still in the green at least. And anyway, and I've been saying for a long time that I'm expecting regression, because I'd literally been going up and up and up. And that beginner's luck can't last forever. Eventually it had to start going down, which it's doing now. But anyway, hopefully this slate of bets this week can get us back up again. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the breakdown. But like I said, it's not going to be my normal kind of detailed breakdown. Partially because I'm trying to get the video done quickly, and partially because I just haven't had a chance to get as much research done on all these as I'd like. So the ones where I do feel like I have a pretty strong read, I'll try to get into it a little bit. The ones that I don't, I'm just going to kind of tell you that and I'll try to give you a little bit, but I might just kind of move on. Anyway, I'm also not entirely sure that I have the right bout order here, but I'm going to jump right in. First fight of the night, at least in the bout order that I have, Tatsuro Taira versus Carlos Candelario. I think Taira, if you get a chance to watch some tape on him, he's an interesting up and comer. He's only like 22 years old, and here's the crazy thing. He's fought a lot of low-level competition, but in his last few fights before the UFC, he's fought some higher-level competition. He's fought some fighters that were 13-14, 24-13, 38-18, and 12-5. So some, those aren't necessarily great win-loss records, but definitely some people who've had some fights anyway. And another interesting thing about him, he's only 22, I think. He took his first amateur fight when he was 16 years old. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I just kind of counted from the year, but he was about 16, 17, maybe around there. Took his first amateur fight when he was about 16. He managed a 9-0 amateur record by the time he was 18, and then he's been fighting professionally, since then, of course. I just realized I wasn't really I'm kind of rushing here. I wasn't really ready for this video before I started recording. Let me get my odds pulled up here. I apologize. This video is going to be all over the place. You guys are used to that. Tatsuro Taira is the favorite at -225. Carlos Candelario, the underdog, at +210. Candelario, he fought on Contender Series. I think he fought on Contender Series twice, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I should talk about Taira, his technique a little bit. He's got a lot of quick finishes on his record. He's a guy that he looks, first of all, he looks like an absolute hoss at 125. He looks like a big guy. He's got long arms. He's got really wide shoulders. He tends to get a lot of quick first round submissions. He doesn't look, he's not going to blow your hair back on the feet. He looks comfortable enough there, I guess. But he can show really relentless grappling at times. He's got really quick back takes. He's one of those guys who, he'll chain takedown attempts together until he gets his opponent down. It's not necessarily that he's going to shoot the takedown and he doesn't get it and he's back to his feet. He knows where he wants to be and he'll work hard to get it there. He has a really tight and smothering top game. He does a great job of floating and transitioning between positions. So he's really great to watch in that way. In one of the fights I watched, he got a triangle from Mount, which, I mean, who doesn't love to see that? You don't see that happen that often, where I feel like that's the ultimate fuck you to your opponent. You're already in a dominant position. You're in Mount dominating them. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to wrap up a triangle from here and then drop to my back and submit you. I have so little respect for your game that I'm going to give up this dominating position and go to a potentially, a position that potentially is in your favor because I believe that strongly that I will submit you. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot to like about him, I think, but he's also young and the tape that you watch, he gets a lot of quick finishes, so it's hard to get a real good read on his game necessarily. Carlos Candelario, he's quick on the feet. He throws really nice kicks. He does have decent takedowns as well. He's appeared on Dana White's Contender Series twice. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to really go through my notes and memorize my talking points very well, so I'm literally just reading my notes to you. He does get a little wild in the feet. He mixes up the striking and grappling nicely. Taira is a big favorite here, and I guess I can understand why, because like I said, he has all those quick finishes, and some of them are against people who have a decent amount of experience at least. But one thing that kind of stood out to me here was that Taira has a pretty tight buttoned up game from what I was able to see, and Candelario can be a little bit wild. And since Taira has that ability to, he has some really nice, quick opportunistic grappling where he's able to see those opportunities to take your back or to get into a dominant position. And with Candelario being a little bit loosey-goosey on the feet, I feel like he might create those scenarios where Taira is able to just really quickly take the back or something like that. So I feel like that might be part of the reason why the line is as wide as it is. I don't particularly like, I think, both of these guys are fairly unproven. I do probably lean Taira to win here, but I think that the line is probably a little bit wide, and I probably wouldn't bet him there. If I'm going to stay away from this fight. If I was going to bet it, I would potentially look to bet Candelario, just because I think that that line is off. And since we haven't really seen Taira go late in fights, and we have seen Candelario go late in fights, and we know Candelario is a dog who will fight hard for your money. If Taira is not able to get that early finish, if he's a guy who fades late, which we don't really know, but if he is, Candelario is the kind of dog who can definitely take over in that kind of situation. Next up, we've got Gina Mazzani versus Shanna Young. I'm not going to get too deep into this. I favor Gina Mazzani here pretty heavily. Mazzani can currently be had for -170. Shanna Young is the underdog at +158. We have seen Gina Mazzani completely tire out in a fight. I think it was the Priscilla Cachoeira fight where she was dominating early, but then she just completely gassed out and she was done for. As long as that doesn't happen to her here, she should cruise. I think, let's see, Mazzani has 58% takedown accuracy. She gets 4.7 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is an astounding number. And she has 43% control time against her opponents. So this is the part I really want to underline. Mazzani has 43% control time against her opponents. Shanna Young has been controlled 39% of the time in her UFC fights so far. I really think Mazzani is going to be the stronger and more physical fighter. She's going to have those takedowns all day long. I think she's going to be able to control Shanna Young on the ground. As long as Gina Mazzani doesn't gas out, I think she's going to have no trouble taking Shanna Young down and controlling her for as long as she needs to. She may even find a finish. She might be able to find a ground and pound finish or even a sub, but I like Gina Mazzani to dominate with the wrestling and probably get the decision here. I did bet Gina Mazzani's money line, and we'll go through those bets that I have for the card when we get to the end here. Next up, we've got Mike Bredon versus Natan Levy. Levy is the favorite at minus 181. Bredon is the underdog at plus 170. I don't really have a strong read on this fight. This is one of those fights where while I was watching the tape, honestly, I was just getting kind of bored. It wasn't even keeping my attention, and I just kind of moved on. I decided right away I didn't want to bet on it anyway, and I knew I had limited time this week, so I just kind of moved on. I think Levy is the bigger, more athletic, more powerful guy. He probably has a little bit more of a buttoned-up game. Watching Bredon, I wasn't particularly impressed with him. He doesn't seem all that athletic. He doesn't seem all that strong. He's kind of flat-footed. He doesn't use a lot of movement. When he finds his spot, he'll get going with those nice back and forth with the hooks. He'll go to the head. He'll go to the body. I like seeing that. He works the body nice, but yeah, I tend to think that Levy is just going to be the stronger, more athletic guy here and with the better game too. I think that he, if he wants to get takedowns and control Bredon on the ground here, I think he'll probably be able to do that. But like I said, I'm not going to get into this fight any more than that because I don't feel like I have a strong read on it. My pick is Natan Levy, but I'm not interested in betting it. Next up, we've got Gabe Green versus Johann Lioness. I did put a bet on this right away after I finished the tape. I bet Gabe Green's money line. I'm not impressed with Lioness. Obviously, he's got knockout power. He's a guy who has found a lot of early knockouts, but he tends to fall apart pretty badly if he doesn't find that knockout in round one. And even though he's, at some point you have to quit calling something fluky, but like when you watch the way he fights, he just doesn't seem like he's very good. And when he finds, but yet he does seem to find that knockout punch, more often than you expect him to maybe. So it's tough to get a read on a guy like that because it's like, his technique doesn't look very good. He just doesn't really have good technique. He doesn't really seem like he's got a great game plan while he's in there. He's just kind of loose, just kind of throwing big punches, and sometimes he finds the knockout. I think Gabe Green has got the much better overall game. Gabe Green is, he's a decent striker. He's a decent grappler. He's already fought in the UFC, I think twice. Is he 1-1 in the UFC? I'm kind of going off the top of my head here because my notes are all over the place too. But I think Green is a lot quicker. He's got a lot better movement. He throws hard leg kicks. He throws fast punches. Also, I think Johann Lioness. He's kind of slow. He's kind of plodding. I expect Gabe Green is going to be all over him here. Johann is always live for that round one knockout, but if he can't find that round one knockout, I think he's going to slow down even more. And Gabe Green is a guy who will crank it up as the fight goes on. He can be an absolute dog. He can be very aggressive. He can be very scrappy. I think he's going to be able to push Johann Lioness up against the cage if he wants to, work him against the cage, be able to take him down. The one thing he doesn't want to do is work in open space and give Johann Lioness the chance to get those big punches going and potentially find that knockout. But as long as he's able to keep that from happening, I think Gabe Green is going to cruise here. So I did bet Gabe Green. Next up is Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman. I'm not even really going to talk about this fight. The odds are crazy. Let me see what they actually show on here. I know he was at minus 2,500. The best you can get Romanov for is minus 1,700 on 5 dimes, and Chase Sherman at plus 1,200. There's no reason to think that Romanov isn't going to absolutely King Kong the shit out of Chase Sherman here. He should be able to take him down and dominate him on the ground. Chase Sherman has shown some decent takedown defense. I absolutely would not parlay Alexander Romanov. I wouldn't bet Alexander Romanov at all. I think even Romanov inside the distance is like minus 700 or something crazy. I wouldn't really touch any of that. Maybe bet, if you were going to bet something, I guess you could bet the fight not to go to decision. I don't know if there's a prop out there. There wasn't on my book to get something like Chase Sherman by KO or even Chase Sherman in round 3 or something like that. The only way Chase Sherman's going to win this fight is if he happens to find a big punch early knockout somehow, or if somehow Romanov isn't able to get the takedowns as easily as we think, or he's able to get the takedowns, but Sherman is able to get back up. And let's say the fight gets into round 3. We have seen Alexander Romanov get tired. We've seen Chase Sherman get tired too, of course, but if there's a universe in which the fight gets to round 3 and Alexander Romanov is super, super tired and can't get Chase Sherman down anymore, and they're clinching together and Chase Sherman is landing uppercuts and blah, blah, and finds a stoppage, that's the only really universe I can see where Chase Sherman would win this fight. Is that worth a sprinkle? I don't know. If you're a D-Gen, maybe. But yeah, Alexander Romanov should cruise here and his lines are untouchable, so I wouldn't bet it. Next up, we've got Daniel Da Silva versus Francisco Figuereto. This is one of those where I didn't get much of a read while I was doing the tape, and I just kind of moved on, so I don't know that I have a whole lot to share with you here. The narrative on Francisco Figuereto, the bad Figuereto, is that he's not very good. I mean, his last fight out, I think, was a decision loss to Malcolm Gordon, who was people talk about Malcolm Gordon as being one of the worst fighters on the roster. People talk about Francisco Figuereto as being one of the worst fighters on the roster too, and he lost to Malcolm Gordon. So, maybe there's something to that narrative. From what I was able to see with Daniel Da Silva, he did look pretty good. I forgot to pull up the odds here. They're pretty close. Daniel Da Silva minus 125, Francisco Figuereto small underdog at plus 110. Daniel Da Silva, and he did have a fight with Jeff Molina in the UFC, and he looked pretty decent there. He ended up losing, I think it was in round 2, but he's got good kicks. He's got this really nice front kick that he throws to the belly. He's got nice leg kicks. He seems to be a decent grappler. Daniel Da Silva, he seems pretty decent all around, but I just wasn't able to see enough from him in the limited amount of tape that I had time to do. I wasn't able to see enough to feel like I have a strong enough read that I'm willing to bet him here. If I had to pick a winner, I probably would pick Da Silva, but this one's a stay away for me simply because I wasn't able to do enough tape to really feel like I got a strong read on it. So we're just going to move on. Next up, Gerald Meershart versus Christoph Yachtco in the middleweight division. What do we got for betting odds on this one? Yachtco is favored at minus 160, Meershart at plus 150. I do like Christoph Yachtco here. I haven't bet this fight because I feel like the odds are probably pretty close to right, so I'm probably not going to mess with it. But these two have almost identical offensive striking stats, which I thought was interesting. But Gerald does get hit 1.2 times more per minute. 89% of Gerald's UFC wins are by sub, and he attempts over 2 subs per 15 minutes. And I would think, his number of sub attempts per 15 minutes would probably be even higher than that if it weren't for the fact that a lot of times he gets the sub. If you get your first one, then your number isn't going to grow that much bigger, right? Gerald does have 23% control time against his opponents, but he also has 28% against him. One thing I really wanted to point out here is that Yachtco he's been taken down only 13 times on 79 attempts for 83% takedown defense, which is awesome. If this fight plays out on the feet, if this fight plays out with distance striking, I do think Christoph Yachtco is probably going to be able to win here. They put out about the same amount of output, but like I said, Gerald has lower striking defense. He's probably going to get hit a lot more. Plus Yachtco is the better striker, the snappier striker, probably the harder striker. So if it plays out on the feet, I do think Yachtco will likely win a decision if he's not able to find a finish. But Gerald Meershart is always live by sub. I bet Gerald Meershart by sub in round 3 against Dustin Stoltzfus, and that's what ended up happening there. So I hit that, I think, plus 1,200 or something like that. So I have not bet this fight, but even though I do lean Christoph Yachtco to win here, I certainly wouldn't hate a sprinkle on Gerald Meershart's sub prop or even Gerald Meershart by sub in round 3 because he's always live for that. Somebody pointed out, I think it was James from Lucrative pointed out that this fight was almost just like a replay of the Paul Craig versus Krylov fight. And I kind of see it that way too. Yeah, it's like I lean Yachtco. I see why Yachtco's the favorite, but Meershart could very well grab him and sub him at any time. So anyway, moving on to Darren Elkins versus Tristan Connolly. I did bet Tristan Connolly here. After I finished the tape, I was expecting Tristan Connolly to be a small favorite, And then he was a small underdog at plus 115, so I did put a unit on him. And then that line moved in my favor, and I was able to get Connolly up at plus 159, so I actually put another unit on him. Am I crazy? Maybe. I've got 2 units on Tristan Connolly. Is that a great idea? I don't know. It probably isn't. We're going to find out, but that's what I did. So I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but the reason that I put money on Tristan Connolly here is largely based on the idea that Darren Elkins has got a lot of fight miles on his body. Obviously, Darren Elkins gets cut really easily. He gets beat up in every fight. That's why he's called the Damage. Darren Elkins tends to rely on attrition. He tends to rely on outlasting you. He tends to rely on even getting beat up himself early on until it's almost like, people say like the Homer Simpson thing. Darren Elkins is almost like, I'm going to let you beat me up. I'm oversimplifying, but like, yeah, I'm going to let you beat me up for a round or a round and a half until you tire yourself out. And then I'm going to take over because I'm tougher than you and I'm scrappier than you and I'm grittier than you. Here's the problem with that plan against Tristan Connolly is because Tristan Connolly is that guy too. Tristan Connolly is a guy who will come at you from the word go, and he will continue to come at you, and he can do it for 15 minutes. He is in that same way that Darren Elkins is. He is aggressive, and he is scrappy, and he is tough, and you can't get him out of there. And do I think this is a close fight? Sure, I do. But I think that Tristan Connolly is going to come out and look to put it on Darren Elkins early. Could he potentially hurt him? Could he potentially cut him? Maybe. Is Darren Elkins always gets cut up and kind of looks rough. So I think the fight probably will go all 15 minutes. I don't feel strongly either way on that, I guess, but I think it's going to turn into a war of attrition. And I think that Tristan Connolly might be able to win that war of attrition. I think Tristan Connolly is tough enough and gritty enough that Darren Elkins kind of counts on you to fade late in the fight so he can take over, and I don't think Tristan Connolly is going to fade. I think Tristan Connolly is going to be right there. He's even a guy who can crank it up more and more. He's one of those guys who can do his best work in round 3, and I think Elkins is going to be fading, and I think Tristan is going to be getting tougher. And I like Tristan Connolly to win here, and I do like a bet on him as an underdog. Next up, we've got Jared Gordon versus Grant Dawson. I'm not going to get real deep into this fight. I don't think Jared Gordon is very good. I think Jared Gordon is tough. He's got some skills, but he's not a guy that I have a lot of belief in. I think Grant Dawson is. I think Grant Dawson is going to be, he's quicker. Jared Gordon's he's one of those guys who's like really plodding too. Like besides the fact that I don't think terribly highly of his skill set, he's also not that athletic. He's kind of plodding. He's kind of slow. I think Grant Dawson is going to be quicker, more athletic. I think he's going to have much better movement. He's going to be able to, be circling and kind of, he's going to be able to help the fight to play out where he wants it to. I think Grant Dawson has the better takedowns, probably the better, just kind of, physicality and strength. I think Grant Dawson's probably going to be able to take Jared Gordon down. I think he's probably going to be able to control him on the ground. I like these guys to kind of have a similar game plan against each other, and Grant Dawson to just have the physicality and the skills to carry out that game plan more effectively than Jared Gordon can. What did I say? Let's see. The odds are, Grant Dawson is favored at minus 165, Jared Gordon at plus 158. I've heard some sharp people betting Jared Gordon at that line. Including Cody Saftik. I think Cody Saftik is betting Jared Gordon, and that's, that guy's no joke. It's usually worthwhile to, take his thoughts into account. But yeah, I'm not going to bet Jared Gordon here. I might have even put Grant Dawson in a parlay. I can't remember for sure. Well, I think I did actually, but yeah, I do like Grant Dawson to win this one. We'll take a look at my bets in just a little bit here, just a few fights to go. Next up is Andre Fili versus Joanderson Brito. Fili minus 220, Brito the underdog at plus 215. I've seen some people on Brito as well here, which I guess I can understand. Brito's a guy, he's going to come out like a bat out of hell, and he's going to look to get you out of there in round 1. And if he doesn't get you out of there in round 1, he does slow down. He doesn't death gas or anything. I mean, he's a guy who can continue to fight pretty hard for the full 15 minutes, but the level of danger that he brings does seem to kind of drop off after that first round because he does come out really hard looking for the finish. Brito is a guy, he's very dangerous early. He's still dangerous late, but less so. So he probably brings the more finishing upside, and he's a guy that you do have to mind your P's and Q's against because he does bring that danger. But I think Andre Fili is just going to be he's going to have the better overall game. I think he's going to have to keep himself out of that danger, but I think he's going to be able to have just like the better distance striking game. I think he's going to have the better output. I think he's going to be able to land more strikes. To me, this is kind of one of those fights where if you've watched my videos before, you've probably heard me talk about when you're in a situation where one fighter's best path to victory involves finding a particular moment, finding lightning in a bottle in a particular moment, and the other fighter's path to victory is a consistent, prolonged process. I tend to lean toward the fighter with the more consistent process, and I think that's Andre Fili in this fight. I think Joe Anderson Brito is likely more dependent upon finding a finish, and if he doesn't find that finish, I think Andre Fili will potentially finish him late or probably just cruise to a decision here. So I think I did put Fili in a parlay, but I think I did that early on. Brito does bring that danger, so I don't know that I even like putting Fili. What was Fili at again? Minus 220. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate you for parlaying him up, I guess, but do so cautiously. All right, only 2 fights to go. We're making pretty good time here. Next up, we've got Jake Collier versus Andre Arlovski. I did bet Jake Collier here. As soon as I finished the tape here, I thought I would see Collier as a small favorite, and he was a small underdog. He's actually more of an underdog now. Let me pull up that line. Arlovski minus 140, Collier plus 126. I think I bet Collier at like plus 110 or something. I thought about putting a little more on him, but I haven't been brave enough to do it yet. But it's tough to feel super confident in a read on this fight simply because look at what Andre Arlovski does now as the 43-year-old pit bull. He doesn't put out a ton of output. He's not very dangerous. He doesn't knock anybody out anymore. He doesn't look to grapple. Like, you basically know what he's going to do, but he's gotten so good at it. Like, people were counting Andre Arlovski out like 10 plus years ago already. Like, his chin is gone. He's too old. He can't make this work for him anymore. But what he did, it was kind of the same thing that Alistair Overeem did late in his career. He figured out a different game. He figured out a way, I don't have some of these things so much anymore. I probably don't have the speed and the reaction time and these different things like I used to have. How can I still be effective as a mixed martial arts fighter, even though I'm getting up there in age and even though some of these things are changing about my body and about my physicality? And Arlovski has just found a game that works for him. It's a pretty simple game. It's pretty bare bones, but he's able to make people look really bad because they just can't figure him out. They just can't get their game going because he's figured out a really simple way to avoid what works for other people and get what works for him going. And another thing that Cody Safdie pointed out, and has pointed this out before too, is he's always in close decisions. And think about, even if you're not doing it on purpose, if you're a judge and you just watched a fight go 15 minutes and Andre Arlovski is in there, whom everybody loves and has been watching since, the dude literally made his debut at UFC 28 against Aaron Brink, by the way, who, if you're not familiar with Aaron Brink, you should look him up. He was actually on an episode of Intervention. He used to be addicted to methamphetamine, and he was addicted to porn and addicted to sex. He became a porn star named... Dick Delaware, I think was his name. He played the villain. He either played Mysterio or Electro, I forget which, in a Spider-Man XXX porn parody. Anyway, yeah, do a deep dive on Aaron Brink, who was Andre Arlovski's first UFC opponent at UFC 28. Anyway, but here's why I ended up betting Jake Collier despite all of that. Collier has excellent volume and output, and even though Andre Arlovski tends to be pretty good at stifling that output, let me look at some stats for you here. And I am playing a little bit of MMA math, because what I did was I looked specifically at the one recent opponent that they have in common is Carlos Felipe. So I looked at the stats and the way the fight played out for each of them when they fought Carlos Felipe. Let me find... Okay, so looking at their striking stats, Jake has 13.2 significant strikes attempted per minute and 5.5 landed, to Arlovski's 8.4 attempted and 3.7 landed. So Jake's at almost 5 more significant strikes attempted per minute and is landing almost 2 more per minute. That is significant. So against In Jake's fights against Carlos Felipe and Gian Vellante, Jake throws in the neighborhood of 280 strikes in those fights, which is really good for a heavyweight in 3 rounds, especially a big, bulky heavyweight like him who looks like he shouldn't really be that athletic. So he threw about 280 strikes in those fights. When Andrade fought Carlos Felipe, his range of strikes per round, like in each round, he threw about 25 to 30 strikes per round. Or excuse me, he landed about 25 to 30, and he threw in the neighborhood of like 50 to 65. When Collier fought Carlos Felipe, he was landing 35 to 55 and throwing anywhere from 78 to 111. I know that's a lot of numbers that I threw at you. And the round in which he attempted 111 was round 3. So he actually was throwing more and more volume as the fight went on, with round 3 being the round in which he threw and landed the most strikes. Here's what I wanted to get at with all of those. In the Carlos Felipe fight, Jake Collier landed about as many strikes round by round and in the fight total as Andrei Arlovski attempted. So literally Andrei Arlovski was only throwing as many strikes as Jake Collier was landing, to say that another way. So overall in their Carlos Felipe fights, Jake Collier attempted 281 strikes and Arlovski attempted 173. So he literally attempted 100 more strikes. That is much, much busier. And I don't want to, like I said, I'm getting into the MMA math there, but just overall from what we've seen, those trends, Collier is very, very busy on the feet and is going to throw a lot more strikes than Arlovski and probably land a lot more strikes than Arlovski. And another thing to look at here is look at round 3 of Arlovski's fight against Jared Vanderaa. Vanderaa won round 3. He threw a lot more strikes. He landed a lot more strikes. We've seen Jake Collier do that too, where round 3 is his busiest round. You know, I don't know, in that Vanderaa fight, I don't know if Arlovski felt like he won the first 2 and he could kind of cruise there or what. But I think, and then also, you know, Arlovski has continued to make it work for him, but the dude's 43 years old now, and Collier is only like 33 or something like that. And, you know, looking at those percentages, the fighter that's 10 years younger wins something like 65 to 70% of the time. Obviously, Arlovski has bucked that trend. But at the same time, you always have to wonder, when is that time going to come that it does catch up with him? Sometimes people can fall off that cliff pretty quickly. I'm approaching 43 years old myself. Actually, I'll be 43 years old in 2 weeks. So Arlovski's a little bit older than I am. But anyway, so I know what it feels like to have this old, broken down body. But yeah, just based on that, mostly based on that output and that aggression, I do like Jake Collier to win this fight. And you can get him at dog money, which I don't mind. And the final fight of the night, the headliner, is Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. You guys are going to hate me for this because this is like the most anticipated fight on the card, and it's going to be an awesome fight, and I really don't have much of a read on it. I can't confidently pick a winner here. I'll throw some stats at you, some of the things that I typed up while I was watching tape and going through the stats here. Font throws 12.6 significant strikes per minute and lands 5.6. Cheeto throws 7.8 and lands 4. So Font is throwing and landing far more strikes. Also, Font has 59% striking defense. Cheeto has only 50. So Font is throwing way more, and Cheeto is getting hit way more. So, but as we saw, like, okay, using the Aldo fight as an example, that might not matter that much because I don't have the stats in front of me. But if I remember correctly, if you look at the stats for the Aldo fight, Rob Font threw more and landed more in that fight, but Aldo was landing the better shots. You know, one of those fights where we see this a lot, where one person is landing a lot more volume, but when the other person lands, it clearly has a lot more effect. It knocks their head back. It kind of scares them off a little bit. And you know, you can certainly win a decision that way. It can look better to the judges. I mean, we've seen a decision go one fighter's way when they landed half as many strikes, simply because the strikes that they did land did some damage and got their opponent's attention. So we could see something like that here. But, you know, if the fight does go to decision, it's hard for me not to lean Rob Font here, because he's just going to be busier. He's going to be landing a lot more. He does have the 5-round experience. Has Cheeto gone 5 rounds? I can't remember. You guys probably know. Let me know in the comments. I can't remember for sure. I don't think he has, but yeah, that is it for that. I'm gonna pick Rob Font. It's not a confident pick, and I'm not interested in betting that fight. That's one where I am just gonna sit back and watch and have some fun. And I forgot to pull up my betting record here so we could actually look at the. Yeah, if you ever want to take a look at my bets, it's at betmma.tips/erikblock. That's ERIKBLOCK. Oh, before I get into the bets here, another thing I wanted to mention, I created an Erik Betts Fights online store. I've got some pretty cool products on there. There's some Erik Betts Fights branded stuff, but there's also just like some cool t-shirts and mugs and stuff that are just like kind of funny, goofy stuff that, for MMA fans. If you're an MMA nerd, and if you're not, then why are you watching this? You definitely want to check out that online store. If you go to my Twitter, which is I'm just Erik Betts Fights on Twitter, go to my Twitter bio. I just put a link tree in there. So rather than that's where you collect all your links in one spot, So if you go to my Twitter, there's a link tree there that'll take you to my YouTube, my Twitter, my Instagram, my betting record, my online store, all that. We're trying to get this brand going, Anyway, take a look at these bets. I put 2 units on Jake Collier at plus 110. I put 1 unit on Tristan Connolly at plus 115, and then I added another unit on Tristan Connolly at plus 159. Man, I was really liking these bets. I'm sweating. I'm a little scared on it now, but I put 2.2 units on Gabe Green at minus 110. And I put 2 units on Gina Mazzani at minus 160. For props and parlays, I did put 1 unit on the Meershart Yachtco fight to go over 1.5 rounds. And I parlayed Andre Feely and Grant Dawson, which came out to plus 131. Plus 131, yeah. I put 1 unit on that. I do have some other spots I'm still looking at. So there might be more bets coming. Probably won't be a whole lot, but it is Thursday. So tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time, that would be 10 p.m. Eastern time, I guess. I do have my Big Money Bets show. Chris Negron from the MMA Archive is going to be my guest tonight. And I have a lot of fun with that guy. We have a really good, kind of a good dynamic and a good chemistry, I think. So you'll probably have a good time if you come check that show out. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a work project. I have a bunch of work I have to finish up yet today. And then I have to go through and get my bets, my parlays and props figured out for that Big Money Bets show, because I haven't had a chance to do it yet. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. As always, I really, really do appreciate those of you who come check out the video, especially if you watch all the way to the end here. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment down there. That helps me out a lot. It doesn't really matter what the comment is. Tell me you agree with me. Tell me you don't agree with me. Tell me that you hate my haircut. I don't really care what it is. But thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call it a video and get back to work here. And then, I would love it if you could join me tonight for Big Money Bets right here on my YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Again, I am Erik with Erik Betts Fights, reminding you to play it smart, play it tight, and let's grow those bankrolls. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.